it is. There's the Chronic Dimension Theater.
Hello and welcome back to the Chronic Dimensions Theater. I am your host, Angelo, aka your friendly neighborhood nerd. Welcome back to a segment that I like to call Reboot Retrospectives, where we look at movies with remakes or reboots, and originally it was comparing the two, but more so it's just learning what the difference is and why they even decided to remake or reimagine a story in the first place. Today I thought it would be fun to talk about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and compare it to its remake, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, seeing as there is going to be a new reimagining, reboot. I know it's a prequel, but it's still kind of like a reboot of the franchise, coming out soon in the Wonka movie with Timothée Chalamet. I think that comes out in a couple weeks, so I thought I could talk about these two, and then maybe when that one comes out I can talk about that one. Now, while this is our first set of musical films that we have talked about on the podcast, I will unfortunately not be talking about any of the music for either of the films, as I want to leave it open for possible discussion about actual musical films in the future. Now, unfortunately, I don't exactly have a guest host today, but I do have a little bit of a guest appearance, and that's actually my father. Please give it up for David Aguiluz, my papa. He was kind enough to let me ask him a few questions about the original film and the remake as well, just some opinions. So let's go ahead and get into that first before I actually dive into the films. Alrighty, Dad, welcome on the show. So first question, I just really want to know, seeing as you are definitely part of the older generation, was the original film something that you grew up on, or is that like a movie that you decided to pick up on and watch later on in life?
So growing up, of course we grew up on the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's almost like we dreamed of, like, what? Is that a real thing? And then, of course, Gene Wilder being in it, classic. So the only other thing that we grew up on was Pippi Longstocking, so, what else was there to watch?
Alright, sweet. Now, another question I have for you is, at the time of watching the original, before the Tim Burton and Johnny Depp version had came out, was there ever another actor that you could see playing the character of Willy Wonka besides Gene Wilder?
That's a hard question to answer, because at that time, Gene Wilder was the man. He had so many movies out. I think he had Young Frankenstein out. He also had a movie, I think it was called Hear No Evil, See No Evil. Forgive me if I forget who the other guy, it was a black, Richard Pryor. So, he did that movie justice. So it's kind of hard to say who else could have played that movie. I didn't really like the Johnny Depp version, because it was like seeing Johnny Depp. It wasn't seeing Willy Wonka. It was seeing Johnny Depp play Willy Wonka. So for me, the OG is always going to be the classic. At the end of the day, it's a great movie. To this day, they make memes about it. You can send your friends quotes. You lose, you get nothing. So it's a classic at the end of the day. At the end of the day, I think some movies need to be left alone. Like, don't remake them, and this is one of them. But if you listen to the younger generation, they grew up on the Johnny Depp version, and to them it's like, who the hell's Gene Wilder? What the fuck is this? But, to each their own. But to me, the original is best. Especially the grandpa, fucking laying in bed all day, stanking like a mother effer, until he wins something. It's like, oh, now I can walk. Like, get the fuck out of here, grandpa. De la verga, cabrón.
Alrighty, cool, Dad. I got one more question. In the remake, besides Johnny Depp's performance, for you, why do you feel like it just didn't capture the same magic as the original? Is it too much of Tim Burton's aesthetic? Is it the over-the-top songs or the overuse of CGI?
Well, Johnny Depp is a good actor, but when I see that movie, like I said, I don't see Willy Wonka. I see Johnny Depp playing a character. And he is a little bit too over the top and too much makeup. Like, Gene Wilder had no makeup. He was an asshole, for real. But Johnny Depp is like, I don't know, he's trying too hard. That's how I feel when I see that movie. And maybe it's because of my era, seeing the original, and then like, whoa, this is like, what is this? Yeah, I couldn't feel it, and I to this day, like, no, I prefer the original.
Alrighty, Dad. Well, thank you very much for jumping on and answering a couple questions. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the production of both films. Starting off with the original film in 1971, let's go ahead and break down this plot synopsis of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Quote, a poor but hopeful boy seeks one of the 5 coveted golden tickets that will send him on a tour of Willy Wonka's mysterious chocolate factory, quote, and that is straight from IMDb. Now, like I said, this original film came out in 1971 and is directed by Mel Stewart. He directed and produced several films, documentaries, and he actually produced the show Ripley's Believe It or Not, which I think is pretty cool. The film, of course, is based off of a book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, that is written by Roald Dahl, who also wrote the screenplay for the film, kind of. Now, this original film was produced by the Wolper Pictures production company, which are longtime partners with Mel Stewart, actually, as well as the Quaker Oats Company. That's right. Did you ever think that the movie Willy Wonka and your fucking oatmeal had anything in common? Well, they were both made by Quaker Oats, which was very shocking for me to learn 100%. And of course, the original film was distributed by Paramount Pictures. Now, the film had a budget of $3 million, and on June 30th, the film was released in theaters and returned $4 million in the box office, which isn't a huge return, but hey, $4 million is $4 fucking million. I'll take that, please. Now, this original film is incredibly iconic. Everything from its imagery, it has been memed to death. There's incredible original songs that came out of this that were remaked, reused to death as well to this day. Plenty of actual candies that were eventually put into production. It's just been all fucking over the entire pop culture since I have been fucking alive, honestly. And to good reason. This is one of my favorite films by far, the original film. It is a movie that I grew up on. I pretty much can say that I know a majority of the lines by heart. I definitely know all the songs by heart. I love this movie, and for good reason. So let's go into how this bitch came about. Now, apparently Stewart's daughter actually introduced him to the original book. She actually requested that he and their friend, Uncle Dave, which actually is David Wolper of Wolper Pictures Productions, she was like, hey, can you please just fucking make this into a movie? Because I would love it. This book is beautiful. So Stewart actually came to Wolper with the idea, and as if by chance, Wolper was actually in the midst of a deal with Quaker Oats to find a way to advertise a new candy from its subsidiary Breaker Confections. That company eventually changed its name to the Wonka Candy Company, and the company bought the rights to the film, of course, bought the rights to the story, the book, and then turned it into a film, and thus debuted the Wonka Bar. So I think this is kind of interesting. If you went back and the Halloween season and listened to my Ernest Scared Stupid episode, this is kind of giving me the same vibes there, as Ernest, the character, actually started off as nothing more than an advertisement character for a specific dairy company to sell their dairy products, and then of course that specific dairy company and milk became pivotal to the plot of Ernest Scared Stupid. So it's kind of funny that Quaker Oats just wanted to fucking make a candy ad, and they decided to adapt this whole book about a candy factory just as one giant hidden ad, and hey, it fucking worked, man. Now, I mentioned that Mr. Roald Dahl wrote the screenplay of this film, kind of, but yeah, he really didn't. So, Dahl actually just provided an outline with key plot points from the book specified. He was just like, yo, I think you should do this and this part, and, I wrote it, so here you go. but actually it was David Seltzer who was added in to production to actually rewrite the screenplay, but was actually left uncredited so that the film could keep its integrity of having Roald Dahl's name attached to the film, which that's a little shady. That sounds definitely like that was probably a Warner Brothers fucking move there. I think it's worthy of note to mention that Robert Kaufman also was responsible for a couple of scenes written into the film, specifically the ticket hysteria scene, which, Jesus Christ, that's one of my favorite films of any film ever. I fucking love it so much. I think it captures just the hysteria and the panic and the crazy times that they are clearly going through over these golden tickets, and it actually just brings weight to how badly the entire world really wants the opportunity to go to this chocolate factory. So yeah, it's really simple. It kind of takes you out of the film just a little bit, but it sets up some really cool tones, I think. Now, this film would be nothing if not for the iconic performances that brought it to life from page to the screen. So let's go ahead and talk about the actors involved. Specifically, of course, the Candyman himself, Gene Wilder. So, Gene Wilder actually auditioned for the part at a suite at the Plaza Hotel in New York, where it is said that the role fit him tighter than a Jacques Cousteau wetsuit. I had to look up who the fuck Jacques Cousteau was, because I was like, I don't know what that means. I would assume that means that the role fit him pretty well. But Jacques Cousteau is actually a French oceanographer and filmmaker. So yeah, I guess that means the role fit him fucking tight as hell, dog. Now, immediately upon accepting and gaining the role of Willy Wonka, Gene Wilder actually added a change for the character, and that was the introduction scene with the cane, where he slowly comes out of the chocolate factory only for his cane to get stuck in a piece of cobblestone, and then he slowly topples over but does a sick ass front flip. I guess he added that wasn't originally in the script. I guess I personally have not read the original book, sorry, but I guess that's not in the book either. That's straight out the Wilder Dome. Now, when asked by Mel Stewart why Gene Wilder wanted to add this into the film, Gene Wilder responded by saying it's meant to plant the seed of uncertainty, not only within the kids coming into this strange, mysterious chocolate factory for the first time, but also the audience. You're not too sure if he is being genuine, if he is being facetious, if he is kind, if he has some tricks up his sleeve, if he's being sinister. You got no clue what's his next move. So filming took place mainly in Munich, as well as Germany and Bavaria. And Mel Stewart is actually directly responsible for the wacky look of not only the invention room, but of course also the 3-course gum machine, requesting that set designers get supplies from junkyards, and specifically chose to have Wonka's office be split in half to add to his eccentric personality. Mel Stewart said, quote, "I couldn't face the thought of ending the journey through this fabulous factory in an ordinary looking office," end quote. Fucking, I think you're right on the money there, pal. That really would have been a little fucking awkward. That half split office of Wonka's that's always stuck with me. He kind of, when he goes to retrieve the contract that the kid signed for Charlie, he goes into that fucking safe. I'm not too sure if he even puts in a code into the safe, but I know that he opens it and it's split in half, and I'm like, I always thought, like, what's the point of that, man? It's split in half, and why do you have that safe? And then of course he has like a nice bust of what I would assume is his face, that he leaves his hat onto, and that's also just half done as well. I always thought that was very sick. Yeah, I mean, I get it completely. I understand it being a weird and eccentric addition to his personality, and just to show how much of a split and fractured man he truly is. But I mean, as a kid, I never really got onto that. I mean, I was just like, yeah, this guy's a kooky motherfucker. I mean, he's in a purple suit doing front flips. Of course his fucking statues are cut in half. Why wouldn't they be? All that being said, I think what this first and original film does very well is encapsulates a story of really a story of the entire chocolate factory itself, and these children, but most specifically this boy Charlie, traversing this entity that, I mean, at times seems to be alive and have a mind of its own. And really, this original film just kind of feels more like Willy Wonka is just kind of like trying to tame this weird space in this town that is the chocolate factory, and then he has all these helpers with him, and maybe, you know, in some weird way, that's kind of why he has this seclusion, because this place is so high maintenance, as we see with all these kids and these tiny little mistakes that they think are, you know, inconsequential, that end up leading to direct disaster. I mean, it's kind of showing, like, I don't know, like, I guess you could say, like, a sense of responsibility, not just a sense of wonder as well, but a sense of, like, care and, I don't know, like I said, just responsibility when tackling these wonders of the world. I think it's very interesting, and also it's wrapped in a lot of heart as well. Not so much as this original film doesn't focus too much on the Bucket family, more so just, I mean, slightly even the relationship of Grandpa Joe and Charlie, but more so just Charlie himself navigating this strange world, as opposed to the humble beginnings that he's used to. I think it's very beautiful. It has stuck with everybody for a reason, and I think it's going to remain like a classic film forever. I mean, I don't, as much as you can see remakes and reimaginings being made, even the original cast has agreed on several interviews that I have watched. I mean, there's nothing to hate on necessarily about adding and expanding the universe and the lore and the world itself. It's, if anything, like, this original will never be erased, and I applaud it for that, because there are many films that are remade and you're just like, oh yeah, fuck that, oh, what were they even thinking back then? And this is not the case. Alright, let's go ahead and jump into the 2005 Tim Burton remake. This one is actually titled Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which already sets the stage for a more faithful adaptation to the books. Whether or not it is completely faithful to the book, it is definitely a little closer. Let's go ahead and get this plot synopsis read through. Alrighty, it says, quote, "A young boy wins a tour through the most magnificent chocolate factory in the world, led by the world's most unusual candy maker," end quote. That, of course, is the official plot synopsis by IMDb. Now, right off the bat, although the plot synopsis and, of course, the story is eerily similar, if not completely the same, there is just some slight variations, such as this plot synopsis makes no mention as to the name of Willy Wonka. That is because in this film he is much more reclusive. He is much more of a myth, of a urban legend, if you will, and you know, the story for this one more so is to learn about Willy Wonka as a person himself, whereas, like I said, the original was kind of more so navigating through the wonders of the chocolate factory. This film is navigating through the mind of the wonderful Willy Wonka, and that's a little bit more of a reveal. Now, this film was released in 2005. It is directed by Tim Burton, of course. Tim Burton is incredibly famous, but if you don't know, he is responsible for movies like Nightmare Before Christmas, Frankenweenie, Corpse Bride, and things like that. This movie is also written by John August, who, if you are unfamiliar, he has written movies such as Charlie's Angels. Of course, he actually collaborated with Tim Burton to co-write Corpse Bride as well, and Frankenweenie. So, I mean, he's got some interesting movies for sure. This time around, Warner Brothers holds the rights as film distributor, releasing the film theatrically on July 15th in the US and just a little over a week later, the 29th in the UK. Now, the film's budget was $150 million, which is definitely quite a bit more than the original film had, and this film saw a box office return of $475 million. Good God. I can't even imagine what the fuck that looks like. This film actually became the 8th highest grossing film of 2005. I actually got a cool fun fact here that I'm going to try to deliver with a hit in my lungs without taking a breath. Fun fact, this is actually the first musical that Tim Burton has directed, seeing as he didn't direct Nightmare Before Christmas, and it is also his second highest grossing movie, and also he shot this simultaneously with Corpse Bride, which is fucking crazy. Due to Dahl's distaste for the 71 film, seeing as they completely rewrote his outline of a screenplay, WB was actually in talks with his estate for a remake since way back in 1991. Now, before Burton was brought on to direct the film, names like Gary Ross, who actually directed movies like Pleasantville, also Rob Minkoff, who directed movies like Stuart Little 1 and 2, as well as The Haunted Mansion, and even fucking Martin Scorsese. Fucking what? They were tied to the project as potential directors. Now, good lord, next I have a list of actors who were at one point considered or discussed or directly tied as actors to play Willy Wonka at one point or another. So this is the craziest fucking list of cast that I have ever fucking seen, so let's fucking get through it. Now, prior to Johnny Depp playing Willy Wonka, at one point we could have had the likes of Bill Murray, Christopher Walken, Steve Martin, Robin Williams, Nicolas Cage, Jim Carrey, Michael Keaton, Robert De Niro, Brad Pitt, Will Smith, Mike Myers, Ben Stiller, as well as Patrick Stewart, Adam Sandler, Dustin Hoffman, and fucking Marilyn Manson. I got another fun fact about casting. Let's see if I can do this with holding a hit again. Fun fact, Michael Jackson also wanted the role. He even recorded an entire soundtrack. However, he was denied by Warner Brothers, so he angrily shelved the music. Fucking release that shit, man. That means there's a whole Michael Jackson, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory soundtrack, and I need to hear it. Johnny Depp was brought on by Burton as a longtime collaborator, of course, and it was pivotal that his portrayal not be a version of just Gene Wilder. He was responsible for the haircut to display Wonka's out-of-touch, recluse nature and just his wild sense of fashion. And apparently, he actually based his interesting, unique Willy Wonka voice on what he said as, quote, what he would imagine George W. Bush sounds like on drugs, which now I cannot get that out of my fucking head. AI isn't incredible, but somebody please fucking use AI to put Wonka's voice over George W. Bush speeches. Now, Charlie Bucket is played by Freddie Highmore. Of course, I know him from the Spiderwick Chronicles back when he was very young. I love that. And of course, he's been in things like Bates Motel as well as The Good Doctor. He's even been memed himself, of course, that whole "I am a surgeon," which I've never seen The Good Doctor. I've never even seen that fucking scene, so I've seen the meme though, so he's popular enough. Now, he was about 12 years old at the time of filming, and good God, he gave a extremely heartfelt performance, especially whenever he denies, originally denying Willy Wonka and relinquishing ownership and taking on the chocolate factory, and deciding to be with his family. I'm like, oh man, this little boy, he loves his family. He does a great job. I could not have done this shit when I was fucking 12. The young little lass at the time had previously read Roald Dahl's original book, and had decided to reread it before auditioning, but he did not watch the original film until after production with WB and Tim Burton had completely wrapped, which I think is very cool. It just adds a little bit more to his performance, I think, especially being so young. Now, the Tim Burton aesthetic can be felt throughout the entire film, as he opted to build mainly 360-degree sets to fully immerse the actors in their little world. Now, the Pinewood Studios backlot transformed into a miniature town consisting of several streets, nearly 50 homes, 20 shops, the factory courtyard belonging to the infamous chocolate factory, where the weird little fucking puppet show animatronic thing goes down, as well as the little shack that houses the Bucket House. Apparently, Wonka's chocolate room was constructed on Pinewood's 007 lot, which is one of the world's largest sound stages. Artificial grass shaped the entire landscape, with the big focus on the Chocolate River. 270 feet long, 6 feet deep, 192,000 gallons of faux chocolate, with an additional 30 gallons to create the waterfall. And, well, that was used to create the beautiful chocolate river and the chocolate room, and to bring definitely a more realistic vision to life. I think I, for one, was incredibly shocked to discover just how much real world building was put into this movie, as I just had assumed that a lot of it was CGI and visual effects, but it's very interesting to see just how much animatronics, puppetry, real world sets, and just interesting camera work was used to bring this world to life. As I said, this film actually does a much better job as diving more into the character of Johnny Depp, just, staying away from the world, staying away from family, and just seeing what that kind of lifestyle can have. As much as he has all of this notoriety, fame, he is surrounded by all these Oompa Loompas and stuff like that, but it's the love and the truth, those are his fucking workers. He's surrounding himself with work, and you really should be surrounding yourself with love and family. So I think that's portrayed very well in this film. That is all I have for the production side of both films. As I said, it does feel like a good portion of both films are missing, and that, of course, would be the musical side. I don't want to talk about that just yet, as maybe in the future I want to talk about a whole bunch of musicals, and I'd rather go into it there, so where I can give it some more focus. I have been your host, Angelo, aka your friendly neighborhood nerd. I thank you for listening to this reboot retrospective on Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, as well as Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I, for one, am pretty excited to see the new film Wonka with Timothée Chalamet, and I'm sure I will cover it here at some point. Thank you guys for listening. I also want to thank my dad one more time. Thank you for letting me interview you and ask you a couple questions. And my dad actually has a message for y'all, so I'll let him send you off.
You've been listening to Chronic Dimension Theater. If you haven't been listening to this, what the fuck are you listening to? fuck out of here.